All right. So once again, welcome. And if you also want to say hello and put your names and where you're from in the chat, that would be incredible. I am going to give you just a few questions in the beginning, just to kind of help us all understand where everyone is from and what they're up to. So, how I'm going to do this first Slido question that should hopefully be popping up on your screen. If you don't see it, like raise your hand and tell me. But I'm just curious, how many of you attended our last call? Oh, I see so far a 25%. Oh, smaller amount. Great. We'll give it a minute. Okay, wonderful. We have a whole bunch of new people today. So thank you for coming. We'll talk a little bit about what um, NYFIC is and what we're up to before we get into the presentation. I'm going to stop this poll and go to the next question. And I'm curious just what your background is. So if you can let us know, like, just your like what part of the supply chain, which one do you identify most with? I think some of us, can hit multiple categories, but if you could just decide on which one is the closest to what you do on a day-to-day basis. And while you're doing that, I'll just take a look at the chat. Oh, hi, Robin from PA Fibershed. Amazing. And Christy from Albany, Liz from Brooklyn, Kurt from Brooklyn too. Oh, we got a lot of Brooklyn nights. Carol from Mid Hudson Valley, Luca from Brooklyn. Oh, and Amanda from Brooklyn. Wonderful. Let me go back to the app. All right, so it looks like we have a nice mixture across the board, but 35% designers, and we have some educators, researcher, farmer, students. Oh, who's the student? Get a little show of hand for the student, or maybe not on camera right now. But welcome. We love having students. I think it's really important for like the whole range of people within the industry and the next generation. So that's amazing. And I'm going to go on to our next and final question, which is how many of you have worked with New York Fiber or materials before? Oh, look at that. We're getting kind of like a half and half. I love it. I think today will be really great because we're going to be really talking about the experience of three of our grantees who have gone through kind of working within our supply chain. So for those of you who haven't worked with New York materials, I think this will be a really informative piece. And then for those of you who have, I think it's great to kind of see how different organizations, brands, people kind of think about the supply chain and how they use it. So what I'm going to do is just quickly share a couple slides about the New York Fashion Innovation Center. See. Maybe if I can get this to go into full screen. All right. Oops. Just gonna start at the beginning here. Okay. So for those of you who have not been involved with NYFIC, it's a statewide initiative. It's supported by Governor Hochul and also NISTAR, which is Empire State's Development Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And we are made up of 6 consortium members. So we have RPI, Hudson Valley Textile Project, FIT, Madex Hudson, SUNY Morrisville, and the Field to Fiber Company. And that's sort of across the whole supply chain, which is really great. And Whoops. Okay. And so our mission is really just to connect researchers and farmers and designers and manufacturers, everyone within the supply chain to help accelerate these innovative solutions. And it's really all about natural fibers and next generation biomaterials. And we're trying to impact our supply chain and, and really bring it to the next level. And we're working on a number of initiatives to help advance these sustainable goals. One of them is our grant program, and you'll be hearing today from some grant recipients from the first round. And I just want to let you know that we have our round 4 is open for applications, and it is we'll be accepting applications until June 1st. And we'll be having a Q&A on May 4th. So I put the QR code in there if anyone wants to snap a picture of that. Otherwise, you can just go to our website under events and you'll be able to uh, sign up for it there and register. I also just want to mention that we have the Northeast Fiber Exchange, which is for raw material sourcing, and that is led by our consortium member, Hudson Valley Textile Project. We also are launching this summer the NYFIC lab that will be at RPI, and it is for testing and textile sampling. And then we are also working on a manufacturing directory that will help connect brands and manufacturers, and raw material suppliers all together. And then lastly, we have our community. So that, we consider this a shared space for connection and learning and collaboration. And we have our calls and in-person gatherings, as well as a private LinkedIn group. I have the LinkedIn name down below, as well as the group number. So I hope that if you haven't joined, that you will. And for today, just wanted to go over, like we just went through our 10-minute overview and intro. We are going to have a 30-minute presentation between 3 of our grantees from round 1, which I'm so excited to hear from. Then we'll do some Q&A and discussion. So I'm going to stop my presentation. And I would like to introduce, we are going to start with Karen Oddo from Graze. She has developed a beautiful farm to sweater line, and I'd love to have her talk about what she's done and how she's worked within New York.
Hi, everyone. Oh, thanks so much, Susan. It's so nice to meet everyone. I'm Karen from Graze, Graze like animals grazing. So yes, my best friend Mari and I, who Mari wasn't able to be here, we are best friends from upstate New York. And just maybe a little bit of background. So Graze sort of began with a question we kept returning to, like in our own closets, right? Why had it become so difficult to find knitwear that felt like it was thoughtful and beautiful and made domestically? And as we sort of examine this question more closely, we realized that knitwear relies so heavily, on synthetics, and really only a handful of brands in the US are working with US wool from like farm to finished garment. And then even among those, production is really fragmented. Sometimes domestic fibers used, but then it's knit overseas, or garments are made here using imported wool. And with FIC, we were so excited to put out some sweaters that were farm to finish, wool sweaters made entirely within the New York ecosystem, which was really, really exciting. So I guess sort of when we think about, Susan, I'm happy to, would it be helpful to just kind of talk about the journey of working within the New York ecosystem and sort of folks we partnered with along the way?
Yeah, would it help for me to pull up the the final presentation that you
Sure,
gave, or do you want
sure.
me to pull up the website? What would be easiest
Sure.
for
If
you?
you have the presentation handy, that'd be great.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Let me just grab that then. One moment. I think I have a final update from you. Yeah, so let me
in terms of, and while Susan's doing that, just to kind of frame like within the New York State ecosystem, sort of the opportunity and need. So what we saw were, synthetics, right? Use of synthetics for knitwear that's not great for the environment or for people, right? It's lots of microplastics. And they're right over time degrade quickly. They're cheap. They're not very durable. Wool is a natural fiber that is really a fully circular fiber. It's sort of made from the earth, meant to return to the earth. So there was that piece of it. Offshoring. I'm sure folks in the call are familiar with sort of the journey manufacturing over the course of the 20th century in the US and definitely in New York State, where we had a lot of textile manufacturing and a lot of, because of globalization and other factors, a lot of that was sort of offshored. And so we have seen historically, like abandoning of local infrastructure, wasting some local skills. We hated the idea of that as well, and really wanted to support what remained. And there is a lot that remains, actually. So that was part of the mission. And then also, just supporting our local farms and farmers. We know that there are farms where it actually makes more sense to just discard the wool because the cost of shearing and milling became so high. And that's bad because then you don't have as many animals grazing the land, and managed grazing is essential for soil health. So we saw these sort of issues and really wanted to be part of a system that is trying to address these issues together. So we wanted to create farm to closet sweaters all within the New York ecosystem. Let me see. Yes.
That'd
So in terms of what we actually did, so in terms of what we actually did, we looked at a lot of different types of like sort of what New York State has to offer in terms of sheep. And there's quite a variety of different sheep that have different characteristics to their fiber, and some is softer and some is rougher. They all have sort of different properties to them. So we did a lot of digging into what was available and the kind of fiber that would be a good fit for the type of sweater and hand feel we were looking for. And we were delighted to be able to end up with a gorgeous, gorgeous yarn that was part Corriedale, sheep from the Finger Lakes region, from farms in the Finger Lakes, and then mixing that with alpaca. So the Corriedale adds a lot of, there's a real nice bounce to it and has nice stitch definition. And then the alpaca added some lovely loft and softness. It also has, natural color variation. So we were able to mix those and create some really beautiful natural colors. And yeah, we were, basically learning to work within the New York ecosystem. And, there, maybe because of offshoring and other things, it's more limited than maybe it was historically. But I think the punchline for me is that there was actually so much still to work with, and so many local skills, and actually quite a bit of infrastructure left, and just learning to work locally, with partners. And that it was a really fantastic experience. I can tell you who we ended up partnering with. Maybe others on this call will have similar stories. But Clean Feet Fleece out of Mechanicville, New York, did all the scouring. And then the fiber was spun into yarn at Battenkill Mill up in Greenwich. And then we used Tailored Industry in Brooklyn for the actual manufacturing of the sweaters. And so we iterated a lot, and we ended up with two products that we're really, really delighted with. And I think there's a picture of a couple of them here. We're a very baby brand. We just went live at the end of January, but we're excited that after we went live, we went from like 150 Instagram followers to now I think we have 750. So that feels positive. And I think we're excited to just continue to get the word out. over the next year.
Great. Should I, let's see, stop sharing? And um, what I think we can do is we can go through all of the presentations and then we'll just have like a Q&A to go from there. So, um, Kristina, would you like to go next?
Oh, sure, that sounds great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for making the time to be on this call tonight. My name is Kristina. I'm from the Kristina Collins clothing brand based in Saratoga Springs, New York. I'm going to be sharing a bit about, excuse me, our FIC grant project and how we've used that to launch what we're calling the Local Wool Initiative. This is an initiative that we hope to carry on beyond 2026, but I'd love to share a bit about how we got to this point and where we hope to go with it. Um, so, as I mentioned, we're based in Saratoga Springs. We focus on women's jackets, blazers, and outerwear, and all in natural fibers, almost exclusively from wool. So our goal is high quality, lasting garments. We do a lot of small batch. We do still offer some of our styles made to order to reduce waste. So while almost everything is sewn here in Saratoga, we also try to source as locally as possible. Up until now, that has not been as locally as I would love. And enter FIC project. This story you're about to hear is how we made that happen. Our area in upstate New York, the studio happens to be nestled in a very rich agricultural area. We're within short drive to many fiber farms, but woven New York wool wasn't yet available to us. So through HVTP, Hudson Valley Textile Project, we were able to just start investigating what was around and what was available and what we might be able to do. And we discovered that there was still a need in the supply chain to finish yardage at scale efficiently. So the Hudson Valley Textile Project has built a very strong network, but that was just the last step remaining, keeping us from adopting New York woven wool into our product line. So the NYFIC grant program is how we were able to establish that process. Through the grant, we were able to look into what finishing services existed nearby or within New York State. We were able to place 2 finishing orders of woven New York wool. We did 1 yarn dye piece and 1 piece dyed. We've developed a farm to fashion roadmap documenting the process, and this personally is a big deal to me. I'm hoping to help other brands to adopt more local sourcing and manufacturing, so that roadmap is written for all of you out there. And very important and really very encouraging is the community engagement that's resulted from this. There was a recent piece about the brand in a local publication, and there was a lot that they included from the interview. But the one thing, as people approach me and say, "Oh, what a great article," the one thing they ask me about consistently is, "What's this project you're doing with New York wool?" So that metric is sort of a difficult one for me to gauge, to really measure. But I can just say that community response has been awesome. Our existing customers are very excited about this release. So that's been a huge accomplishment that was possible because of this grant. Gosh, I hope I included everybody on this list. It took many hands to make this happen. From the 2 farms we sourced fiber from, which were Anchorage Farm and Bear Farm, both located within the state, of course. Both of those farms welcomed us onto their property to meet their flocks and really educate us. And they helped me personally to understand the challenges and the rewards of raising sheep in New York State, and how, as an almost end consumer of their fiber, how I might be an instrument to support their work. Clean Fleece and Mechanicville, of course, did our scouring. Bat and Kill Fibers not only did our spinning, but Mary Jean was very helpful in helping me to source the right fiber and just kind of help guide throughout the project. Kelly Schultz from Yarn Designs Unlimited. Kelly came to my studio on a few occasions to match this color. She did a beautiful job. And not only did she match the color precisely, but we had great results after scouring. We didn't lose any color. just a really fantastic job, and she's not too far from our studio either. Lily Marsh did our weaving. We ended up with a beautiful Dornick twill for this project. It's very unique, really one of a kind textile. Excuse me. Draper Knitting did our scouring finishing. Same with American Fabric Processors. They did our piece dye. The FIC lab will be working with, hopefully when they open this summer, to do some simple evaluation on the textile so that we can sort of have a place, not just a place to work from, like a stepping stone for the next iteration, but in case we want to reproduce, that we could also reproduce a fabric that met the same characteristics. One of the amazing parts of being an NYFIC grant recipient was the business coaching, and a big shout out to my coach, Eric Ledette. This program was fantastic, and it's available to those grant awardees. So that was something we took advantage of. So some key findings from the NYFIC grant project, and these, some of these are included in more detail in the roadmap I mentioned earlier. The yarn and weave structure we selected for the wool initiative produced a beautiful and unique textile that is absolutely suitable for midweight outerwear. And more importantly, it proved that New York woven wool is not just available, but it's well suited for garment production. So sometimes we think local textile, and we might not really appreciate just how much and how varied and how unique a local textile can be. And it is very well suited for garment production. A couple things we considered when choosing the finisher was being able to process the yardage without cutting it, configure the scouring times. We really needed to baby this wool and make sure that we weren't overfilling it or shrinking it too much. That process confirms that we absolutely have capabilities within the New York fiber supply chain to, excuse me, I skipped a bullet because I'm getting excited to tell you guys that, that we absolutely have the services and suppliers necessary to produce these high quality wovens from farm to finished textile. And that includes being able to produce at a workable garment fabric width. So it would be a bit of a workaround if I had to work with something less than 45 inches. Lily Marsh Studios is able to weave at over 60 inches, so that wasn't an issue. Another big, I would say, strength to New York wool was that softness was not an issue. Sometimes there's a stigma associated with wool clothing that it's going to be scratchy. I can say that from the initial lab dips, we knew right away that softness wasn't going to be an issue, and adding softener to the wet process agitation didn't make any measurable difference in the finished goods. So we didn't even need to use a softener, which I think speaks a lot to the quality of the fiber our farms and our fiber processors are producing. So that leads us to the local wool initiative. This has been a long time goal because the brand focuses so much on sourcing as locally as possible. This idea of being able to reach out to our neighbors and actually use fiber that's within driving distance from our studio has been sort of a pie in the sky kind of dream. But thanks to the NYFC grant program and the help of all those collaborators I showed you on a previous slide, we're able to actually launch the local wool initiative this year. And the hope is that these are going to be long-term partnerships and that this is going to become part of a much bigger movement in the fashion industry. I'd love to share the roadmap with anybody that's interested to kind of help guide anyone else that would like to take part in this, to use New York wool in their products. And the hope is that we can together strengthen the regional supply chain, celebrate and bring focus to local agriculture, and really get back to making conscious fashion that is so closely connected to the place it comes from that it's a benefit and an asset instead of a draw. So the exciting news is that from this fabric we created through this project, we are doing an exclusive made-to-order release. Excuse me, the final sample is almost done, and the way that will work is made to order so that we don't waste any materials. Customers are already signing up to get notice of the release and get information about the pre-order process. And anyone that's interested, I have a little screenshot here of the website. That contact form is right there on that page, so you can sort of follow along where the project is and when the jacket comes out. But if you want us to update you, there's a very simple contact form at the bottom. And just for expressing interest in the project, you will receive a special little gift in the mail. So a huge thank you to New York Fashion Innovation Center for being the catalyst for the Local Wool Initiative. A personal thanks to Mary Jean Packer of Battenkill and Lily Marsh of Lily Marsh Studios. They have been extremely patient in teaching me the ins and outs of local fiber. And of course, the Hudson Valley Textile Project. If you haven't already checked out this group, I strongly encourage it. This is how I first started to wrap my brain around what was possible within the New York fiber supply chain. And the best way to describe this group is they're like a local fiber think tank. So if you have an idea, that's where you can go to develop it. And again, my first name is Kristina, but I have our contact information here. Even if you just want to, reach out and talk to me about that roadmap, I'd love to share how anybody can get involved in this and help us strengthen the New York fiber supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristina. That was amazing. And now I'd like to turn it over to Melissa to give her presentation.
Hi. Thank you. So let me go ahead and share my slides that I have. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so what the project that we did was building a farm to fashion school supply chain. It's been an interesting experience, really fun and really broadened our horizons at Cornell. Paige Tomford is a PhD student, and she was the one who brought the idea to me. And as as we were writing the grant, I later realized that I wanted to add field trips to the project. The whole point of our project was to build a supply chain of yarn for our knitting studio. I'm going to go to the next page. So this is something that Paige created. It's like basically the fiber chain that she laid out for us. What's been interesting is that actually, let me take a step back for a second. I work at Cornell University, and the department is human-centered design, and I teach in the side of that department, which is called fiber science and apparel design, and specialize in knitwear design. And so it's interesting because we have designers, we have fiber scientists, and we have fashion design management. I'm sorry if you heard my cat. And we have fashion design management professors and students. And so it's been a great place to do this project because we can bring all of those aspects together. And from the design point of view, I was very curious to see if we worked with people along the New York farm to fashion supply chain to develop yarn. And I brought my students into that process. And if they met everybody along the supply chain and then used the yarn, how would that affect their approach to design? And it was really interesting because it really did have a pretty strong effect on it. I also learned that we, as a design school or department, our needs are different than someone in the fashion industry or a fashion designer who's like Kristina, who's looking to create a small batch, a line of jackets. And because there was no specific yarn that we were necessarily looking for, what we were looking for was yarn that we could knit on our knitting machines. So we have both hand operated knitting machines and we have a 12 gauge Shimaseki knitting machine. which is very fine. And so the challenge there for our partners along the supply chain, in particular, Bat and Kill Fibers spinning mill, was being able to spin yarn that fine. The supply chain is still primarily for hand knitting yarn. So to get this process started, we started to work with Mary Jean Packer at Bat and Kill Fibers spinning mill. She was really great and very generous and introduced us to a lot of different farmers. We learned a lot about the different type of sheeps out there, different breeds. And the first farm that we visited was Crooked Creek Farm. And this is Amy Glazer, the farmer, and one of our students, Liriana. Amy Glazer likes to use her wool to create felted products to sell, and also just as an artisan. And she's showing us her felting machine here. Here's some of her sheep. Amy Glazer's farm was interesting because it's one of the larger farms. It's like 175 sheep, and she's got a huge variety, a lot of crossbred sheep. So New York State, one of the issues with New York State is we have it's not a good climate for merino wool because merinos do not like the humidity up here. They do better in drier climates. And so there are some fine wool breeds in New York we started to discover through this process, for instance, Rambouillet, but the majority of the sheep breeds produce medium grade wool. So the micron sizes of the fiber is probably about 10 points higher than a merino. At the same time, we learned that those medium grade wools have some really nice properties. And when you blend them with fine wool, the fine wool gives it a really nice soft hand, and the medium wool will give it, like what we heard before, stitch definition. It has more, it's more downy, it's more insulating. So this is the approach we took, was blending fine wool with a medium wool. And so I'm just going to go through really quick and show you some of the farms that we visited and collected wool in order to make yarn. This was Misfit Acres, and these are some Romney sheep. This was up in Argyle, New York. This first one, Crooked Creek Farm, by the way, is only 20 minutes from our campus. So it was kind of nice to do this project in a location where we're very close to many sheep farms. This was an overnight trip. And this Misfit Acres is near Bat and Kill Fibers spinning mill because we wanted to go and see the process of the yarn being spun. We also used some alpaca, which we're still waiting on the yarn for that. Coriadel was the first yarn that we made, was a blend of Coriadel and merino, because at the time we weren't able to find fine wool in New York State, and it was important for us because, like I said, I'm creating this yarn to put on the shelf for students to choose to use, and so I want to make yarn that they're going to touch the cone and want to use it. So it needed to be soft. So we used merino from Colorado and blended it 50-50 with the Coriadel from Bear Farm. And Bear Farm is also only a half an hour from Cornell. And this Finn Jacob sheep, this is also one of the first batches of yarn we made. I love this picture because it looks like a family portrait. And these are Paige, Tom Ford's sheep. She has her own little small flock of 4 sheep. So these sheep are also crossbred. Finn is a sheep breed in New York State that is a really nice breed for making yarn, and I'd like to explore that more. Finn is on the, like, officially within the medium grade in terms of micron size for the fibers, but the hand is really nice and soft, and it just feels nice and lofty and squishy. It's nice to knit with. So here's like another thing is I would have my students, when we went to Amy Glazer's farm, we all sat out, like on the first slide, with our sketchbooks, and we drew and we took notes and we just observed what was around us for inspiration, because the idea was that as we started this project of using this yarn in our knitwear design class, and the first project was making socks, that the inspiration would be the yarn itself, the story of the yarn, where it comes from, and also just the qualities of the yarn and the properties of the yarn would feed into the design process for the students. So I love sketching sheep. I love drawing, and I always liked to. Every farm we went to, I'd do a drawing of one of the sheep. Or if we weren't able to visit that farm yet, I'd find a picture of that breed and do a drawing of it. But so this is some of the sort of blends that we did. We did Paige's Jacob Finn cross with Finn sheep. We did Corriedale and Merino, and then we also did Romney and Merino from that slide where you saw the Romney sheep. And so far, that one is my favorite. The Romney is very lustrous and strong, and it just has a nice sheen to it to add to the nice soft hand of the Merino. Another thing we did is, so this project started last summer. And by the way, I saw that Ethan Drake is on the call. Welcome, Ethan. It's really good to see that you're here, because Ethan was one of our students, just graduated last spring, and is now working at Shimaseki. But Ethan was the one who started working on this project with me. And as a fiber science major, sort of established the process that we'd use for assessing the yarn. So there's multiple ways that we assess the yarn. The first way was to do a swatch book, which I kind of think of as more of a technical swatch book, where we just test out knitting with the yarn using different stitch combinations to see how those different stitch combinations challenge the yarn, and to see how efficiently it knits. We also did tensile strength tests, as you can see on the left. And on the right is just sort of an example page from our swatch books that we would do, with a little drawing of, since this was a Romney Merino blend, and we actually know the name of the sheep that's in that yarn. His name is Bo, from visiting the farm and watching the shearing of the sheep together. And then we would put notes and have technical information about the stitch size and the number of courses and wales, and the machine that we knitted on. Here's a picture from the field trip that we went on, and you can see Paige is on the left side, and right next to her is Mary Jean Packer from Batten Kill Fibers, who has definitely been involved in so many of these projects, and it sort of looms large in these, yarn making here in New York State. Batten Kill Fibers is a mid-sized mill, but the largest mill in New York. And she's been a really big help for us. And we've also done some investigation into other mills in the area, and found that there are several other mini mills. We've also went out and visited Nobletown Fiberworks, which is in the Hudson Valley region. But this is the class visit to Bat and Kill Fibers. We also visited several other sites, including Clean Fleece and Hudson Valley Textile Project on that trip. And we went to see Lily Marsh's studio because she uses also New York State yarn in her production weaving studio in Glens Falls. And it was interesting because for the students, after getting to know, getting to see the whole farm to yarn manufacturing process, it really gave them perspective on the yarn that they were using, and also gave them, they became part of the story of that yarn, I guess, would be the right way to put it. So they knew everybody, they met everyone who touched this yarn that they were going to use to knit their first project. And it just sort of changed their approach to it and made them feel a connection to the yarn. So, which was interesting. They embraced that process. And some of the students who were a little skeptical in the beginning eventually came around. Excuse me. Anyway, so this image is to show, these are some of our hand knitting machines that the students were working on and that we were developing yarn for, which will knit about 6 stitches in an inch. And this is the Shimaseki knitting machine, and you can see some swatches from the yarn that we were using to knit on that machine, which is very much finer at 12 stitches per inch. And here you can see we have some of the yarn that we had made out, sitting out in an exhibit that we did. We were able to dye the yarn in 3 different colors, and we sort of chose them together, and we had 2 base natural colors with the dye. So up here in the front, you can see this is the gray was the blend of Page's sheep with the Finn sheep. And then here are the swatches of the different colors that we had made. And the one all the way on the left is the natural Corriedale Merino. And then there's the 3 different colors. We chose well because everybody was worried that, that all of their work was going to look the same because we had such a limited palette to work with. But in the end, there was a lot of variety based on the design direction that each student chose to under the umbrella of Farm to Fashion. The student here, you can see that little mood board on the right, was kind of fascinated by half-shorn sheep. And these are some of the swatching she did using the 2 different yarns. So we had both very fine and a double ply, and the finer yarn a lot of students embraced. It's just really fun to play with the fine yarn, even on the thicker gauged machines, in contrast to the thicker yarn. Here's some more examples of their projects. The one on the left is exploring the color, and the one on the right, more the texture. These were, I think, the socks that were made from that half-shorn inspiration. And here's a few more examples you can see their thoughts on the theme of Farm to Fashion. The student was Roan Harvey, was thinking about the tiny tendrils and light and tight curls you find in the quiet spots on a sheep behind the ears and under the neck. And this student, Emily Fawn, who also is a fiber science student, and she has also been helping with this project. And I thought it was pretty interesting that this idea of blurring the boundaries between tenderness and utility, affection and consumption. This is really just about looking at the sheep out in the pasture at Amy Glazer's farm.
Melissa, I might
I think that's it.
Hey, I just had a
stop you there to We'll have some time for some
Yeah.
questions. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you for all three of you for sharing your projects. I mean, the the work is all really beautiful and very different. And if others have questions, I'd love to be able to answer, have that happen. I have a few that maybe can just get us started. Um, so I'm curious, like for each of you, like what was that like starting point or that initial question that made you want to start to work with New York materials? And any of you can just pipe in and answer that one.
Sure, I can answer that one. I just personally have a deep appreciation for the farmers around me who steward the land. Um, I'm just in awe of the kind of work they do, and I didn't want to just be a consumer of. I wanted to find a way to use my business to help support them in return. Um, and just I mean I'm a wool lover, so that seemed like the natural way to do it. Um, and I just that synergy of working closely with with the people in your neighborhood, as we all learned when we were little, is real. It's tangible and it's productive and it's beautiful. And so that 100% was what drew me to pursue this. Um, and I just appreciate FIC for making that possible.
Oh, and Karen, I think you're muted.
Yes, yes. Similarly to jump in, I mean, Graze is sort of focused on domestic production writ large across the US, but in terms of New York State, I mean, myself and my co-founder are upstate New York girls at heart, that have, growing up where we grew up, farms in our, near our backyard with flocks, and just seeing the work, and the care that's put into the animals and the land. I mean, it was like a no-brainer for us that we absolutely want to support the New York ecosystem and supply chain. And also seeing like some farms and mills shuttered, even like I know a lot of that stuff happened sort of like in the early to mid 20th century, but even recently, right? Like I remember that happening with some neighbors. So it's very deep, very personal to both of us. So we were just ecstatic to be able to work with FIC, and have a vision become reality, with the New York sourced, milled, knitted sweater.
Melissa, how about you?
Well, I think part of it had to do with getting away from microplastics in our knitting studio in general. But then also just from the educational standpoint, I appreciate the scale of New York supply chain. It's been so welcoming and easy to connect with people within it, and to bring my students along and to like sort of introduce them to this community of people, and and also to collaborate with them.
Mm. So I have a slew of questions, but I see some questions in the chat. So I think if the people who are writing the questions, like Carol, do you want to just unmute and ask your question? And then if not, I can read it. But
Oops, wait a second.
yep, you're unmuted now.
Okay.
Oh, now you're muted.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Okay, sorry. I'm a member of a local weaving guild, and I was just curious to know if any of you have connected with, there's guilds all over the place that do weaving, spinning, dyeing, knitting, and it's a good resource for people who know textiles. And I just wondered if any of you have connected with local guilds.
Well, I'm going to make a plug for you to put your information into the chat, as well as join the community, the LinkedIn community, because I feel like we would love to help make those connections for, and add you in to our directory.
Sure. And we're also members of the Hudson Valley Textile Project. So we've tried to make that connection. We attended the summit last week. I didn't, but some of my members did. So anyway, nice to meet you
Great.
all.
Yeah, really nice to meet you too. That's amazing. So yeah, we'd love to get more information of what you're doing. All right, and then the next person's Kate, if you want to unmute and ask your questions. Oh, or I can ask it for you, Kate. I don't if you can't unmute. So she's interested in the financial
There
end
it is. I
and
got it.
oh
Sorry.
good. Hey Kate.
Um, yeah, I am I'm interested in the financial ends for a couple of you. Kristina, for example, do you find that sourcing locally has changed dramatically your pricing structure at the end? And for Karen, can you just give us a general idea of sort of the pricing that you're looking at for your final products? Retail or wholesale, but just be clear about what you're talking about.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. It's an important thing to consider, right? For anyone who's considering this, sourcing locally as a business proposition. To give you a good idea, it is somewhere around 3 to 4 times as expensive for my materials. Okay, so here's my thoughts on that because I love to strategize about this. As a product developer, I can reduce development cost by choosing a style that my sewing team already knows how to do well. It's in our wheelhouse. Okay, so there are ways that I can mitigate that extra cost so that I'm not experimenting with new techniques. I don't need special machinery, and I'm not outsourcing any part of the construction. Okay, that's one thing. But the other thing I want to point out about that is thus far, and we have yet to really launch this pre-order, but thus far, people are asking us to be notified when it's released. Now, that's a big deal to me because customer acquisition costs are huge. It's hard whether I use, even if I sourced my fabric from overseas, it is hard to gain traction against all the other big sellers. They're in our faces all the time. They pay millions of dollars to advertise. So the fact that I'm already seeing women email me and say, put me on the list, I want to know when it's out, and I'm giving them some price ideas. And that's a huge win for me on customer acquisition cost. So I just want to say that because it's not just as dark and gloomy as saying the materials are, 2 to 4 times as expensive. It's not that simple. It's selling to a totally different group of people. It's actually increased our social reach by about 30% over the last year. That's mammoth for us. So yeah, if I only look at the price of yardage against the price of yardage, it is significant. But there are so many other benefits. And I do think I'm optimistic, Kate. I feel like the more brands that can come together, and I'm still saying I would love to collaborate with some other brands to pool resources to place larger orders that can help us innovate, streamline process, and lower our end price point on the yardage. I do think we can do that. We just need enough visionaries who are willing to, get in the trenches on this and really make it happen. It's absolutely possible.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. I love your point about trying to work like pre-competitively. So the idea that you can, have other brands come together and create materials, and then each person or each brand does their own expression with those materials. I think that feels like a really nice collaborative way forward that benefits everybody. And so I'd love to offer any support to help coordinate and bring brands together that want to do that and see what we can, create together. All right, so the next question I see, Abigail, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. Apologies for my tardiness. I ducked in, I missed some presentations, but I'm curious about I noticed there were some breeds that were not heritage breeds, or like there were different not purebred sheep that were part of the fiber network process. I'm not using good words, apologies. I'm just curious about the heritage breeds versus mixed breed sheep and the preservation of heritage breed sheep, and how the different wools, the advantage of, this is why I typed it out, the advantages of having the blended fibers and the blended sheep versus a heritage, preserving a heritage breed sheep.
I guess I could talk about that, but so for us, yes, you're right. Well, the fibers we're blending that primarily for the quality of the yarn. But yes, but you're right. A lot of the wool we've worked with are basically because of our community, more so than this notion of heritage breeds, because Amy is a good partner for us, and it's interesting. She used to work run a lab at Cornell's animal science department, and so she has been strategically crossbreeding, and so it's an interesting thing with going to her farm. It is hard to identify specifically what sheep, what the mix is of the sheep. And sometimes she's not even sure. It could be like 3 or 4. And then of course, Paige, she's my partner. And so we had to make yarn from her sheep, which are basically rescue sheep. So they're mutts, you know what I mean, that she rescued. But then other than that, we were thinking a lot about breeds. And so like the choice of the Corriedale and the Romney, those are both, purebred sheep breeds. But we also needed to make sure we blended them with a finer yarn. And we're now working to get Rambouillet, which is a sheep breed that you can find in New York State. And they're bred for both meat and fiber, and they're as fine, within the same range as merino. So we're waiting. That's the last sort of batch of yarn that we're waiting on for this project. But I know like Jacob is a heritage breed, right?
Yeah.
And I'm very curious about them because they're kind of tricolor, multicolored sheep. And we're very interested in experimentation because to us, the yarn is what we want. We don't quite know exactly what the end use will be yet, other than whatever project I decide to give to the students. So we want a variety, and we want to continue like exploring different ones. Do you have ideas for any heritage sheep we should look at?
I'm just thinking, my and this is not local to New York, but my mother has sheep, and they're along the lines of heritage sheep, but they're not like they're Dorset, but they're mixed Dorset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just curious about like they're not possible to be participated in the shave them to save them kind of
Mm-hmm.
philosophy, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just,
And actually, the fine yarn that comes out of Colorado, I think it's also blended. It's basically based on micron size more than the actual breed. But I have noticed a big difference I know we have to go a big difference between Romney versus Corriedale, even though they're both medium grade. Their properties of the fiber is very different. So
I think that's what I was just going to pipe in, because I think we do have to kind of close up for this, but I think that's the beauty of New York, is that there are so many different breeds of sheep, and some of them are heritage, like Shetland or Jacobs, or different ones, and they all have different characteristics, and so I think there's there's crossbreeding that happens with sheep, and then there's mixing that happens with yarn, and so there's like a lot of different options that you can look at when you're developing materials. And and they all have different rationale and reasons behind them. So there are some, like Isabella Rossellini has Mama Farm, and her whole mission is about preserving these heritage breeds and to really understand them better and to keep the biodiversity. So I think it just sort of depends on like what your value system is, what your end goals are, and so there's a lot there. I will say that there is, oh, and I love that, Maureen, what you're saying. It's very much like a fine wine, because every season, depending on the nutrition and the weather, the feed, the grass and it's a little bit different. So that's
I stole your
really
line, Susan. I didn't mean to steal it, but I
no,
did want to
no.
put that in there. That is your take, but it is true. So.
And I love it. I mean, I think to me, like the slow food movement really has influenced the way I think about the fiber here. It's like we really have such an opportunity. And I'm really excited to like continue this conversation. There was a question about Textile Month. We will participate in Textile Month, so stay tuned to hear more about that. And our next call is going to be with Laura Sansone from New York Textile project lab, I'm sorry, I'm getting all my names confused. And she'll talk about climate beneficial yarn that she's developing with fiber shed, and she'll also talk about like the regenerative process. So I think that's going to be a really nice conversation, and I look forward to continuing this with everyone. So thank you so much for coming. And I look forward to seeing you soon and connecting with you in the LinkedIn group. So thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you.
Oh, and Liz, there will be a video that we will post so that we will put that up so you can see it.